users, owners, great stuff. Well, all the staff with their hands up, brilliant. They get it for free. Thanks ever so much for your support. Yeah, you come and work for us. One of the great pleasures of running this company has been to meet with loads of composers and to realise we're not in competition, albeit we probably are in competition with eBay, but that's about it. I think that I would put composers into two classifications, those who gather sounds and those who make sounds. And every once in a while we'll meet a kindred spirit who doesn't just make his own sounds, he makes his own sonic universes, whether it be the Source series or Wayward Pines. It's my great pleasure to introduce, and it's a real pleasure because I can then say I've shared the same stage as one of the 9 Inch Nails, Charlie Clouser.
Hi. Thank you, Christian.
Thanks very much. I came over to your house the other day, and I think it might be quite a nice icebreaker to talk about a new piece of kit that you've been using recently.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've always, as Christian mentioned, I was for a long time ago in a universe far, far away. I was a keyboard player in a band called 9 Inch Nails, and we did a lot of collecting of weird instruments, not so much building of instruments, but a lot of collecting of synthesizers and terrible sounding drum machines and weird effects and so forth. For the last 16 or 17 years since I left the band, I've been mostly composing for films and TV. And that's kind of a different set of sonic requirements, but the same kind of criteria of being a sonic spelunker in search of something I haven't heard before still kind of applies. And that has led me down a few dusty trails with dead ends, but one dusty trail that wasn't a dead end was the search for more bowed metal instruments. I'm sure you've all heard things like a bowed cymbal, but I found this interesting sculptor and musical instrument builder and musician and just all-around weirdo and genius who builds a variety of things which straddle the line between being a sculpture to look at and a musical instrument to be played. And using his 30 years of experience as a welder and fabricator and sculpture builder, and the knowledge that he's built up over those years of how different metallic alloys sound and how to coax different noises out of them, he's built a variety of instruments. Most of them are for his own use, but I did manage to pry one of them out of his greedy fingers after 15 years of gentle persuasion. So one of his creations lives at my house now. This guy's name is Chaz Smith. He's used some of his instruments on scores, not only for all of the horror movies in the Saw franchise that I've done, but also he was hired recently to add his tones and textures to Hans Zimmer's score for Man of Steel, and some other recent Hans Zimmer score that Chaz wouldn't tell me the name of. So there's more coming, but we're not sure where. And we do have a little video that you guys shot, right?
Absolutely, and this is a NAMM exclusive, the first time this has been seen. It's just 2.5 minutes long, so here we go.
Oh yeah.
This is an interesting instrument, sort of one of a kind, which was built by the amazing musician, metal fabricator, and instrument designer named Chaz Smith. And this instrument is basically, we have this stainless steel sheet which is suspended by these nylon cords so that it's sort of in free space. And then we have 2 of the low A string from a grand piano. So when the string vibrates, it causes the sheet to vibrate. And it acts almost like a plate reverb would, that it's being excited by an acoustic source. After he built the instrument, as I was playing with some of his other instruments, which utilize lots of bolts and rods sticking out from the resonating surface, I asked him if he could modify this. So he gave me a sort of kit of a lot of these little bolts and T-shaped mechanisms that he welded up. And so they can be moved around, and each one is sort of a different thickness, so they'll produce different tones when they're bowed. Let's take a listen to it. This sort of metallic cloud that follows behind the sound, and that's really the function of the sheet. If the sheet is damped, then we still hear the tone of the string, but less of that bloom. So you can kind of control a little bit how the sound responds. Pretty dark.
It's pretty dark. Excellent stuff. Thanks so much for showing us that. So, I mean, one of the limitations of that is it plays one note. So, how do you harness these things?
Well, that's the hard part. Obviously, you can tune the strings a little bit within a very narrow range before it doesn't really sound good anymore. So, for something like that, what's not really in the video there is all of the little high sounds that can come when you're bowing the rods, which are there's a wide variety of pitches that can come from the rods, but when dealing with that big fundamental low sound, really the only choice is to sample it, map it across the keyboard, and then play it at the pitches that are required. But it certainly its sonic space kind of dictates the key of the cue sometimes, because it's got a sweet spot at its natural pitch, and if it's raised up more than, say, half an octave, then it just doesn't feel as girthy and chunky as it does when it's just doing its normal thing.
That's brilliant. And you very kindly brought a cue with you here. Mm-hmm. Do you want to take us through what this is all about?
Yeah, and I mean, this cue that I've picked today kind of ties into what you were talking about before about with the idea of being sonic collectors and looking for strange and unusual sounds that may not be common. And everybody knows that Spitfires are more well known perhaps for their orchestral and symphonic style instruments, which they sample and perfect to an insane degree. But there is a whole lot of stuff lurking in their product line, and even inside some of their main libraries, that is well outside the realm of just the ordinary everyday orchestral stuff. And for instance, there's a lot of instruments in their Spitfire Labs series, which are smaller, less expensive, and more quirky and sometimes more interesting instruments. And then of course, on some of their bigger products, like in the Albion series, you've got these sort of bonus folders like the Brunel loops and that sort of stuff, in which you'll find a kind of a sonic grab bag of less conventional but more quirky and interesting stuff. And that really ties into the kind of stuff that I tend to like and tend to use. I didn't come from a background as an orchestral composer or arranger, so I do use orchestral libraries and orchestral sounds in my work, but not, I'm not doing sort of John Williams fanfares and elaborate flute and harp flourishes and stuff. I do need to get a little bit of the tone and the texture and the weight of the orchestra in my music, but it's not really the front instrument. So the cue I brought today uses a lot of, in fact, almost every sound in these tracks that I'll show you is from a Spitfire library, and I'll point out the ones that aren't. But I'm using sounds from Albion 1 and Chirango, which is a Spitfire Labs title. Also their very strange and interesting Mandolin Swarm library, which is unusual and cool and not something you find in other product lines around the Hall A here. And I do have a smattering of orchestral stuff from the Mural Ensembles and from the Evo Strings library, and also from your Clarvis scraped metal percussion library, which of course was a natural thing for me to, I clicked add to cart on that one very quickly. And this cue what I'll probably do is let it play down one time, and then I can kind of go in and solo a few of the instruments and show you, let you hear them in isolation. This cue is from this TV series called Wayward Pines that I've been doing for the past couple of years, and it's at the end of an episode where the forces of evil have been stalking Matt Dillon and Juliette Lewis's characters, and it's all about to come to a head. They successfully evaded capture for most of the episode, but here we are just before the last commercial break, and they do not make it out in one piece. So I'll just let it play, and probably I'll probably leave the dialogue on this first run through, and then I'll shut it off so that we can focus on the instrumental sounds. very rugged. So, you know, the whole idea behind that cue is to just have a variety of layers of this pulsing, tension-building stuff that would gradually grow. And obviously, in the final mix stage, when we were fitting all the music around the dialogue and sound effects, what you wound up hearing on over the air on TV was a little different. They were pulling elements in and out, maybe pulling the drums out here and there, so it wasn't just this relentless pounding. And that helped them kind of just sculpt it a little more to the picture. But this is sort of the bed of what I delivered to the dub stage, and now I can kind of go through and show you how it kind of breaks down. It's fairly color-coded on my Logic sequence here, in that the orange stuff will be drums, the gold color is the scraped metal stuff, the green stuff is all the plucking stuff that I was talking about earlier from the charango and mandolin swarm, and then the blue is orchestral stuff, and the purple bits are synthesizers. So despite my heritage and reputation as a synthesizer user, there's not a lot going on in the synthesizer department, at least on this. So I do have a little bit of the percussion is comprised of actual audio recordings that are augmented by a lot of the Spitfire stuff. So some of this stuff is hard to even tell the difference between the Spitfire stuff and this. These are old live recordings of taiko and sort of movie drum sequences that I had lying around. So I kind of used them as a way to create a bed that I can then augment and accent over the top. And so all these audio pieces just provide this sort of rumbly bottom. Then there's a track which just has some accent noises like a tom-tom roll that's very unexciting, and a couple of other little accent bits like scraping on a cymbal. And there was a couple instances of what the producers on the show referred to as the Wayward Pines theme, which is a little snippet of female solo vocal that I used in the main title theme, which I also composed, that the producers would want to insert whenever we wanted to signify the evil that lurks in this weird little mountain town that this all takes place in. And that's just this little echoey melody. And then from there on down, pretty much everything is going to be from Spitfire libraries, except for this one 909 kick that I put in as a sort of heartbeat effect. But that's the end of the stuff that you can't buy here. So then moving a little further down, I did have a sort of a surdo, I believe, from Albion 5. There's just a little similar to that 909 kick, but just with a little bit more tail end on it, a little more of an acoustic footprint. Something from the Hans Zimmer HZ01 percussion library. This is in the low hits folder, and it's the surdo drums.
It's a real crack to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's got a good sharp front, but then a woody kind of. It sounds like a tom-tom part, but it's got a little bit more of a round and soft front on it. It's not a drumstick in your face.
It gives it a sense of scale as well, I think.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that's something that's great about a lot of the performances that you guys recorded, that I don't have to hand program each of those flams, because there are flam notes in the key map, so it's very simple to.
We get many customer service tickets about them.
Yeah, I bet. And I believe, I just want to check, but I believe that almost everything in that track is quantized. There's a few unquantized notes, but I predict that most of the flams we're hearing are at the source, in the sample. Then there's another track from Albion 1, from the Darwin Percussion Ensemble, and that's some of the tom-toms in the Darwin collection. I'm actually using the pitch knob in contact, the knob in the upper right. I've just pitched it down by, I think, 7 semitones to just blend it a little better with that surdo from the Hans Zimmer library. And those two tracks are playing the exact same MIDI data. they're just being layered in the sequencer so that when together, it's even more gigantic. Then moving further down, we get into these stuff from the Clarvis scraped metal percussion library, and I use that for the sort of scary accents, like when the throat gets cut at the end, and for a couple of other tension moments. And that is comprised of 2 layers. That, which is just a standard sort of bowed cymbal effect, and then there's another patch in Clarvis called Industrial Accident. And so those 2 sounds together form the shrieking accent, but I was also able to use that Industrial Accident patch as a sort of evil keyboard bed in the very beginning, before all the rhythms come in. And so for that portion of the cue, I have 2 sounds kind of merging together. One is that Industrial Accident patch from Clarvis, and then another patch that was called a flute pad from the Clarvis, but I'm sure it wasn't a flute. And so I'm using, at the very beginning of the cue, before everything kind of kicks in, I'm using those 2 patches as well as some Evo grid strings. So at the beginning of the cue, we have the 2 Clarvis items. That's that Industrial Accident patch. And then the Clarvis flute pad. And that's all blending together with some stuff from the first Evo Strings library, which I'll solo and play now. The Evo Strings series and the Evo Woodwinds and stuff that you guys did is really one of my favorite sample libraries of all time, because it'll pretend it's going to be a normal string section, and then it all goes horribly wrong after you hold the keys down for a while. And to me, that's one of my favorite aspects of that library, is that it starts innocently enough, and then evil creeps in. I also have a couple of little accents. This one's from your Spitfire Labs iron drum, and I just put a bunch of Logic's tape delay on it. It's a simple little sound, but adds a nice tension element. There's also your orchestral grand, also with some tape echo on it. Just doing something very simple, but serving as a little accent at certain points in the cue. Now we come to the army of plucked garbage. The first thing I laid down was 2 tracks from your charango, which was that weird little, it was a Spanish guitar?
It's a guitar made of an armadillo. They couldn't find a better use for an armadillo, so they made a guitar out of it.
And it, like many of the Labs instruments, it has a bit of an off-center and kind of a quirky sound to it, but a lot of character. And
this is actually played by my brother.
I made 2 tracks in Logic, one with the normal charango patch, and one with the same patch just pitched down an octave on the pitch control in Logic, or in Contact rather. And so the 2 of those layered together forms kind of the foundation of this plucky mess. A little bit of pitch bend knob in there to get it to be a little woozy. And those 2 things are panned a little bit left and right, so there's some kind of dimension occurring there. Then I've found a whole load of stuff in Albion 1 in the Brunel loops folder under the organic category. There was some Barenbow, which is that sort of 1-stringed thing that's hit with a stick, yeah? And some other things that were just like a South African Fanta bottle and other pitched percussion loops, which, because they weren't single hits and they were actual recordings of little loops, they had an interesting kind of dynamic and wobble within them. And because the Contact's engine will lock them to the host tempo, as this cue goes on, the tempo does increase. It gets faster and faster at 3 or 4 points, but all of these loops sort of track that and hang on. And so I have one piece of berimbau. And so that's an actual loop that's played, and then I'm just bending pitch here and there.
And it tracks when you do the pitch as well.
Yeah, and it stays in sync. Because, you know, the pitch bend or playing the different keys on the keyboard only affects the pitch, but not the timing. So it'll stay in time with the rest of the sequence, even as I try my best to deflect it. Another little piece of berimbau. Some, I believe this is a wine glass played with a finger. And the South African or the Kenyan Fanta bottle. Something that was just named Pan, which certainly sounds like a tin pan.
It's a tin pan.
And then something that was labeled trumpet fiddle horn, which who knows what the source of that was.
1915, they were popular for about 4 months. It's made of a gramophone horn, single string.
And it's obviously just almost percussive.
It's on the actual horn.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I had a couple of tracks of their mandolin swarm, which how many mandolins were?
It was 22 mandolins, or a combination of mandolins, nylon guitars, and charangos.
Wow.
And all, about 16 of them on the main stage in the hall, and then 8 of them, I think, or something, around in the galleries. So it's, it's just a mental idea.
It's definitely bonkers. But it has a really interesting and blurry, and it sounds like an army of mandolinists coming at you. And similar to the charango, I did 2 tracks, one that's pitched an octave down, just using the pitch knob on Contact, and then a normal one. So the normal one is, musically it's not fancy, it's just one freaking note. But it's all about the sonic interest and the unusualness of the source material. That's the octave down version. And the 2 of them together kind of make this mighty stack.
I guess why it makes it so successful for this scene is these sounds are almost familiar, but not quite. So you don't quite know where you stand.
Yeah.
You can't go piano and just sit back in your chair and consume.
And that's, what you just said is also why there's only 3 synthesizer tracks in here. Despite my heritage, I use almost no synthesizers anymore because I found that they draw attention to themselves in a way that familiar and comfortable instruments like piano, strings, whatever, don't. And that I don't want the audience to get distracted from the story and what's going on the screen and all of a sudden say, did R2-D2 just walk into the room? What's that high-tech bleep and bloop and that drum and bass square wave filter suite? I try to use as little of that stuff as possible because it really draws attention to itself. But at the same time, I don't want to just use plain Jane piano strings and things. But I do want to have instruments that have a familiar organic footprint to them, but are delivered, played, and rendered in a screwed up way. And that's why so many of these things like the charango, mandolin swarm and stuff are perfect for the kind of music I like to do. Then I do have a couple of notes on your cymbalom. I've also pitched that down an octave to give it more of a grunt. A couple little ornaments from my own collection that's like a reverse piano, which is just there because. And then we get into the Spitfire orchestral stuff. And it carries a lot of weight, but there's not a lot of tracks. So I do have mural ensembles, short spiccatos. And they have a good grunt to them.
Good front end.
Yeah. And then from Albion 1, the short strings, low octaves. And they have even more like straight to them. The 2 together is a fairly mighty chunk of bottom end. Then I have some accent swells from Sable.
It's our chamber strings.
Exactly. Because this I wanted tremolo cellos, but I wanted to be very legible. I didn't want it to be soupy and far back in the hall, so that's why I went with the chamber version, because it's much more up front and you can hear the wiggle.
3 players as opposed to the 8 on
Right.
Yeah.
So it's much less of a blurry kind of ensemble sound than you'd get from the bigger sections. And that's just doing these swells. And that's sort of all it does, but it's legible that it's jiggling and wiggling, even amongst all the other garbage that's in this cue. Then I have a pair of tracks doubling up to create the low brass. One from Albion 1, which is brass low, long, nasty. And anything that had the name nasty, and it was one of the first patches I loaded. It's got a real good grunt to it in the bottom. Then there's a bit of chords and a bit more kind of playing going on Albion 1, brass mid, longs. And this is kind of not just playing sort of swells, but it's also playing a bit of melodic action or some mid-ranging chords. And I tend to favor those kind of horny ensembles that have that a bit of a muted texture to them. They're not brassy, they're not trumpets, and it's not a fanfare. It's a melancholy kind of dark swell. Then that's playing a few chords throughout, and I went over the top of that with another patch from Mural, which is the long strings consortium. And I'm a huge fan of all the flautan, more muted or delicate